Hey you guys, thanks for listening to the first episode of the Hyperchat. There are a few minor audio glitches which we will rectify for the next live episode on June 18th. And I hope you can join us to watch live then. I hope you enjoy the new show. Let us know what you think of the format. And may that force be with you.
Hey you guys, welcome to the Steele Wars Hyperchat. I'm comedian Steele Saunders, and I do love Star Wars. And if you're watching live, you would know I love technical difficulties as well. And we are having a ball. We are live in Hollywood, California, and we're going to talk Star Wars and also take your calls. If you've got a question, if you've got a comment on Star Wars news this week, I know quite contentious on Twitter right now is where Star Wars creators, representatives, people that have worked for the company, licensed by the company, whether they should be speaking out about fan behavior, and we'll get to that later on. But if you want to call in, you can do so on 646-668-8360. If you're watching live on YouTube, that should be in the show notes. Now, just to let you know how the show is going to run, we are on video. You can also get the podcast on demand on iTunes or wherever you get a audio podcast. That will be available at steelewars.com or wherever good or bad podcasts are downloaded. And you can talk about us live on Twitter by using hashtag Hyperchat at Steele Wars. And are we online there, Rashad? We are good. Sometimes Rashad gives me these looks, and he gives me the same look if things are going well or bad. I think he just doesn't enjoy looking at me. But what are you going to do? Let's invite our guests to speak freely. It is very apt. The king and queen of Star Wars YouTube with us today. Please welcome Mollie and Alex Damon from Star Wars Explained.
Hi.
Hello.
So what's been happening? You're out in California. You're from Atlanta.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Very cool. Do you ever appear in that show?
Donald Glover's show?
Yeah.
I wish.
Not yet.
Okay. Well, you should get an agent
I
and
don't
then
know.
fire him for not getting you on that show.
I don't know that we would fit in on that show.
Yeah, probably not.
Too much. You know too much about Star Wars?
Well, yeah, I'd just be constantly badgering Donald, I
Yeah.
think.
Do Lando. Do
He's
Lando.
like, you have lines, and I'll be like, yeah, but what was your favorite cape? Like,
Where L3?
Would that work?
Where did it go in? What's going on? What's happening? You're out here you did the Schmoedown, the big Star Wars trivia.
it was fun. I'm not allowed to say a whole lot more than that. It was a lot of fun. I can't tell you how.
I think what you'd be allowed to say would be who you competed against,
I
and
competed
where
against,
you'd be able to watch it.
Yeah, we competed against Ken Knapsack and Joseph Scrimshaw from the Force Center podcast. Both great friends, and they both really know their stuff.
Super nice. Yeah, don't believe anything Ken does on camera.
Yeah,
He's such a nice guy.
Ken plays the bad guy, but
Mhm.
behind the scenes, he's just a sweetheart.
Yeah, I think Christian wants you to keep the result like under wraps.
Right.
But I think a bit of light. Here's where you find it. Promotion.
Yeah.
I think he's. a fan of that.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It'll be on Collider Video tomorrow. Yeah.
Tomorrow. So maybe if people are watching it today, who knows? But I did get to attend the big event, and it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun.
It was
And
fun.
Let me ask you this. So they had a big Star Wars 5-way on the Collider Schmoedown.
Right.
And it was, who'd we have? It
The
was
two of us,
Two of us.
Joseph, Geek Girl Diva, and Sam Witwer.
Never heard of it. But
Right.
why do you think I didn't get invited back for this big, extravaganza in an arena?
Maybe you were just too funny.
Yeah.
Too distracting
Stolen the
from the
show.
trivia.
So not through my not through my trivia
Right.
skills. Okay, nice. So if you want to call in now, the lines are open. 646-668-8360. And you're also saying you're going to the E3
EA Play.
EA Play.
Yeah.
Now, is that part of E3?
It's kind of like a pre-show. I think from what I can tell, it's the same thing where Disney was like, oh, Comic-Con's too crowded now, so they started doing D23. EA was like, oh, maybe we can get a little more exposure if we just do something a few days early.
Gotcha. So you go to this EA Play thing.
Right.
And you want Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, that's the hope.
And then some guy comes out and talks about Mary Poppins for half an hour.
Oh, right.
Yeah, okay. So it's exactly like
the new Mary
D23.
Poppins game.
Yeah. Do you guys know that they've got the original table in the Mary Poppins remake?
No.
Oh, okay, you must have been at D23 because you heard about 74 times. I just wanted information about the new Star Wars film.
We thought about going to D23, and then we saw what they had talked about. Excuse me, I'm fighting a cough, so we saw what they wound up talking about, and we were like, all right, glad we didn't go. It was like, yeah, Solo's coming out. Bye.
Well, the interesting thing was everyone came out of that gassing about the Infinity War clip that they showed.
Yeah.
And like I was interviewing people afterwards to talk about Star Wars, and everyone was just like, Infinity War, Infinity War. Now, that's a sign because this month everyone's talking about Infinity War, Infinity War.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you expect from EA? Is there going to be any announcements? Like, what's the buzz?
Honestly, I have no idea. Our friend Battlefront Updates would have been the better person to ask. They just invited us out, so I assume that they're going to show something Star Wars related, something new, probably some new Battlefront 2 content. My fingers are still crossed for information on the Respawn game.
Yeah.
That's my kind of pipe dream, what I hope we get, but I have no clue what we're going to see.
Gotcha. Have you made, like, obviously the Solo box office has been, no matter how you look at it, it's brutal.
Yeah.
It is, like, it's bad for the budget, like, regardless if you spend it twice or, one time. It's bad for a Star Wars film. And it's disheartening. Do you know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of factors, obviously, that go into play. You've got Infinity War. You've got, I always go to say Spawn, but it's Deadpool. Yeah. And so you've got, like, obviously Infinity War is a massive thing. You've got 5 months after The Last Jedi, which always struck me as loopy.
Yeah.
You've got the backstage things. You've got the cynicism of you've recasted Han Solo. Do you know what I mean? Some people just aren't into that. And then the people that really didn't like The Last Jedi and are having their boycott thing, not going to the film, which I always find weird because, like, I understand that they want to make a point, but this is probably the film that enjoy the most out of The Last Jedi and this, so they probably should give it a shot.
I've heard a lot of people saying that, like, I really hated The Last Jedi, but I saw Solo and I really, really enjoyed it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
and do you have like a finger down on what one of the reason behind the box office, or it's just like a perfect storm of these 5 or 6 brutal things?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like a perfect storm. That's a good way to put it. I've never ever paid attention to box office numbers before. Like, I am the last person to talk about it too, because I don't know how the projections work. They asked me about it on Jedi Collider Council or Collider Jedi Council the other week, and I was like, the more you get out of Star Wars and into the real world, the less I know. So
yeah,
I think it was a mixture of bad timing, like you said. It was so quickly after The Last Jedi, and during like the same month of all these other big movies, and like the marketing for the movie just came a little too late, I think. For me, it's like a lot of people didn't even know Solo was coming out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think. But see, that's one of the things, like the marketing and stuff, that falls into that 5 months category. Because if, just say they did bump it to Christmas, which they had the film done, and I think the actual film, like, that didn't suffer Do you know what I mean? I think they got their stuff together like so well.
Yeah, I mean, I walked out of that kind of the same way that I walked out of Rogue One, where I was like, wow, that could have been a lot worse. Like I was afraid that it would just be awful because of all the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a blast.
But that the 5-month thing, because they couldn't really advertise, and I was sort of like a supporter of that you can't advertise the next Star Wars film while the other Star Wars film is on.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I know they do it with Marvel, but they're sort of it's a different beast. Do you know what I mean? Like we've got a set thing. Star Wars isn't a Marvel film. A Star Wars film is normally this big event and because it was every 3 years, and then every year we could, really hone like stuff around that.
Yeah.
When it came 5 months, I was sort of not ready for it.
Oh, I felt exactly the same way. Like I sat down in the theater and I was like, I'm about to see another Star Wars movie. And I hadn't felt like my hype had recharged yet.
Yeah, because you had the film come out and then we, talk about it, sort of simmers down. Then the Blu-ray comes out and then we talk about all that. And then it's the next film. And then in that, you're not putting out any advertising up until, I think it was like February.
Yeah.
And that's got to hurt. But I think one of the major things is the 5 months. Maybe, I actually think that might be the main reason.
Yeah.
There's that, yeah.
That it happened so quickly.
And I mean, I still understand the people, like the argument that nobody asked for this. Well, I think that's a little like nobody asked for a lot of movies that are wonderful, but I kind of get the spirit of that. He's a familiar character.
It's also a lie, or not a lie, but a mistruth. Of course, people ask for a Han Solo film.
Yeah.
The only Star Wars film that no one asked for was Star Wars.
Right.
And then after that, we just went, give us everything.
Yeah.
I want the Wampa Diaries. Like,
yeah, I think when people were saying nobody asked for this, I think they were saying I would rather see this. I'd rather see something else. And I mean, I am kind of in that camp where like I don't want them to do a Han Solo movie and then like they announced a Boba Fett movie and I'm like, yeah, okay. Like I kind of want them to just do something completely different, but I'm still like going to go see it and enjoy it for what it is. So, but I can see why some people would just be like, nah, this one's not for me.
Part of me wishes that they had started, when Disney took over, they had started with maybe a Han Solo movie and then did Rogue One and then went into the trilogy.
yeah.
Slowly build up to a new story.
Yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from, but I don't know if you can argue with perfection of that first year.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I love Force Awakens, yeah.
like despite what happened behind the scenes, like on Rogue One and stuff, like it was the first 2 releases were pretty perfect.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, we forget now that with the Force Awakens, it performed, I don't know, what was it, $500 million more than it should have, or what they projected. So it overdid it, and and that's why I think it was the best way to start it, because it was, whether or not where they started the story or how it went, the after Return of the Jedi is the 30-year want.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe not that many people asked for a Solo film. Everyone asked for what happens next.
Yeah.
Like after Lando does that last clap, what goes on then? Do you know what I mean? And I think now what we know is pansexual. There was some.
We know exactly what he was saying.
There was some wok love, a whole wok of love. I am a bit baffled about where all these films sit. Do you know what I mean? You've got the Ryan trilogy, and I sort of presume that's in the past.
I hope so. I don't know. Like I do. It's become kind of a joke where everyone's like Old Republic, and like sometimes it's like, yeah, just be patient, it'll get there. But like I do want to explore the Old Republic and explore just what happened, the new version of ancient Star Wars history, because that was always pretty compelling.
I just like it for not so much for any of the video game tie-ins or any of that sort of stuff, but just sort of like we've got Star Wars and we're just putting it into a bit more of a medieval format. I think it's really refreshing, because I remember seeing those the cut screens or whatever
Mhm.
at San Diego Comic-Con, and they were just playing on the Lucasfilm like giant screen they have, and just like, what is this?
Mhm.
And then when they said video game, I was like, oh.
But yeah, those cinematics are amazing.
Yeah. So you've got like the Ryan trilogy, and then you've got the Game of Thrones one. And I sort of thought that made sense. But now that we're getting pretty heavily into like Boba Fett, Kenobi, and and if that drifts around Solo, it's just really confusing how these films are going to come out and how the general public are going to keep up with the timeline.
Right.
Of like, because Marvel, it's always in the same direction.
Right.
And I think what they've got a chance to do is do the X-Men First Class style reboot, where they've started the timeline back with Solo 10 years before Star Wars. Is it 5 years?
10 years, yeah.
10. And then you can do like Boba Fett and Kenobi. I'm iffy on the Kenobi. I know everyone wants it, but I don't know. It's hard to when you just thought he just sat in the desert for 20 years.
I'm more into the Kenobi than Boba Fett, just because, I mean, Ewan McGregor is up for it. I loved him in the prequel trilogy. I think he's my favorite part about the prequel trilogy. So I'm like, yeah, I'm totally down to see him do more stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with the Solo thing, we can, and then, so you've got those two films, Kenobi and Boba Fett. Then you can take a break, give it 10 years, and then you can come back and do post Return of the Jedi, like Alden Han Solo, have maybe Luke Skywalker in there, and you're opening up like another 20 years.
Mhm.
Sure.
And by that time, I feel like we would have come around, like it all would have softened. Do you know what I mean? The Han Solo thing. How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I guess I think that the Skywalker Saga should maybe end after 9. I wouldn't mind not revisiting those characters. Like, that was kind of George's original idea, was a 9-movie thing about the Skywalkers. I could see 9 being the end, and then we just move on and start, new trilogies, new series, and I would be fine with that. Like, I think I would be okay if eventually the Skywalker Saga were a minority of the Star Wars films. It's interesting to think about, but
how dare you?
Get torn apart on the internet right now.
What about this though? If Episode 9 is the end of the Skywalker Saga, how do you end it? Like, how do you make it?
It's not our problem.
that's JJ's problem.
Yeah.
The thing to make it a satisfying conclusion of 9 episodes of Star Wars. And I think one of the biggest mistakes in fandom is to say this has to happen. Do you know what I mean? I think that is one of the lessons of like The Last Jedi, is people saying this has to happen. Do you know what I mean? And I did it. I was like, have to ignite the green.
Right.
That was it. But then once it didn't happen, I sort of realized there was another imaginative way for Luke Skywalker to be a hero. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But other people couldn't. Do you know what I mean? They didn't see it like that. They didn't make that connection, or and like it's not for me to judge whether they should or not. It's there, but that's not the option they want to take, and then you get very disgruntled fans. So I'm not going to say this has to happen, but I think this scene, acted and written, it has to be the best writing of Star Wars. It has to be the best acting of Star Wars. Like, it has to be like Sheev at the opera level goodness. But to connect the 9 episodes of Star Wars, Rey is there. Kylo Ren, possibly battling the Force ghosts of Luke Skywalker and Anakin Skywalker. To have Anakin and Luke confront each other and discuss what happened. Because this is always the thing that's like, I could never sort of see Anakin coming back and speaking again. because he did perform all those atrocities. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like Hawkeye under a spell thing.
Right.
It was like he let his rage overtake him and he became that person. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, like if you're a drug addict and you do bad stuff and then you get clear, like you still did that stuff.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And like I know people that, have to wear that when they stole something and stuff, they can't. Do you know what I mean? People remember that stuff. So I always thought it was like there's that Star Wars Infinities where Darth Vader lives and he comes back and it's so good. He's dressed as Darth Vader but just white.
Yeah.
And so he's good. So I always found it was really weird for him to speak again in that like spirit way. It's like, which Anakin Skywalker are you? Like you did do all that stuff. And I always thought it was too hard. But now I sort of think it's hard, but you probably should do it because you what else
can you do? Yeah.
is gonna what else is gonna bind Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, with Episode 9?
Tie it all together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think that 9 has to take all 9 movies and bring him to some kind of satisfying conclusion regarding the Skywalkers specifically. So yeah, Luke, Anakin, and Ben Solo, like something needs to happen with them. They have to have some significant, contribution to the future of the Force or something. And I kind of think Ben Solo will die, and that'll be the end of the Skywalker line. So it will have started basically with Anakin being born of midichlorians, and then we go through the death of Ben Solo, whether he's redeemed or not, I don't know. But I don't know, the destruction of the lightsaber in The Last Jedi kind of signaled to me that maybe things are coming to an end.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Ryan wanted, but maybe JJ doesn't want that. I don't know.
Very symbolic there. Yeah. I would love to see Hayden Christensen back in Star Wars for the last movie. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know what he would talk about, and I don't know what I would want him to talk about, but that would be awesome.
And I guess the idea that, he committed all these atrocities is true, but since Star Wars is a parable and a fairy tale, I think you can kind of get away with it. It's more like the message of, I think, the original trilogy is that it's never too late to come back. And I mean, in the real world, you slaughter a bunch of kids, you're not forgiven for that. But in the context of a fairy tale, I think it was meant to symbolize that.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be more movies about Rey?
Could be.
After all this? I mean, I feel like there should be. I don't know.
Yeah. Depends on how it ends. But if they were to do that, I don't know that they should call it Episode 10.
Right, no.
I feel like Episodes 1 through 9 should be, and here I'm saying it should be this. If it's not, it's okay. But I guess in my mind, I think that 1 through 9 will be the Skywalker Saga, and we might not get a 10, 11, 12. But we might still continue the story into the future. It just won't be Skywalker centric.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I guess it's just a flip of the dice whether they decide to call it Episode 10 or The Crawl or whatever, that sort of thing. But I
think there's something that a lot of Star Wars fans
maybe aren't focused on is so the 3, apart from Ghost appearances, and the only one that's appearing is Luke Skywalker,
they're gone. That.
After Episode 9, they're definitely gone. Do you know what I mean? I can't see
Mark Hamill appearing. If he does appear as a Force Ghost in Episode
9, I don't think he's going to do it anywhere else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, doubtful. Unless, they do something like they did in the Legacy comics, where he just showed up for his great grandson, Cade Skywalker. He kind of tried to guide him in the comics a little bit. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't think they would just keep pulling Luke in. But
yeah, because it's just, I don't know, it just seems trite. Right. But this is Episode 9 is it, and they have to do something so special. And I
I'm happy to be shown something else, but I do think it's so hard to write. so hard to act, but like Anakin and Luke, like I think that's. Is there anything else left to do of that sort of magnitude where you're like?
Yeah, I mean that's something that's just never happened in Star Wars. Is like literally characters from all three eras together at once, and I mean the main characters even Anakin, Luke, Rey, and Ben.
And it's like where they have to keep going and using the Force, right?
Yeah.
And Rey will be maybe the last Jedi. Is she going to train more Jedi? Like, what's she going to do with the Force if it's just her?
So I was talking about online before about there's a big brouhaha about, you know, creators and how they're dealing with fans. I have, you know, compared to a Star Wars creator, a pretty small Twitter feed. Do you know what I mean? But when people are, you know, arguing with you just because you're talking to your friend about the film that you enjoyed and they just come in, I know how, like, oppressive that can feel and how you get a little bit twitchy and maybe a little bit grumpy that you can't just like muck around with your friends online. And when you're someone like, you know, Chuck Wendig or Pablo Hidalgo, who's, you know, got this huge presence, and, you know, I was always shocked with Pablo that he was online answering questions. Like, I remember working out that at when The Force Awakens came out and just like, this is the best.
Yeah.
I started shooting him questions. I always wanted to know, the first question I ever asked him, I think, was, why did the laser split up and go in different ways in The Force Awakens? And I think they were meteors and they were set. I don't know. He gave me some reason, which I still think it's whack that I still think it should have just been one thing at one, but it's such a pathetic thing. But he answered it.
Yeah,
he gave me, you know the answer?
Oh, no, I was going to say he doesn't even like Starkiller Base. Like, he's publicly said, like, don't like that thing.
Why did the meteors go in all different directions, all the thing?
Oh, no idea.
Well, it was made to destroy multiple planets, right?
Right.
So.
But it's like, I guess the question is, why did it stay one beam until the very last second, then it split out?
Just to be showy.
Yeah, like, I mean, you're nitpicking the idea of this
I just
weapon.
like that it's falling into my theory that Mollie does all work.
Because you were just like, I don't know. And then Mollie came and explained Star Wars.
There you go.
She explained Star Wars too. But
it is you know, it's crazy when you get when you start getting replies and stuff.
Yeah.
You can get, you know, and I think they've handled themselves admirably. But Chuck Wendig, and I just worked out, I didn't know this about Twitter, that if you go to someone's tweet, if someone's retweeted something and then the person that did the original tweet has blocked them, it doesn't show up on that person's page, which I don't normally block people, but now that I know that, that's very interesting. I'm more of a muter.
Yeah.
So Wendig, who wrote the Aftermath trilogy, and I think he came under a lot of you know, fire for, he had a hard task to write that first book and not talk about the characters that we wanted to be talked about.
Yeah.
And I, as each book went on, enjoyed it more and more. The
Same.
last one, like, had me like in tears reading. I was so caught up with is it Sinjia?
Yeah.
Love him.
Best character in that trilogy. Yeah,
Love
him
to death. And that touching moment at the end of the book on several different levels, you know, really hit me. Look, I was loving it. But anyway, so he tweeted out the other day, help, I fell down a weird rabbit hole
of shitty Star Wars fans. Oh my God, these people. And he followed it up with, what a weird thing to be a fan of, a thing you so obviously despise. Now, some people got their nose out of joint that he referred to shitty Star Wars fans, and that you shouldn't call Star Wars fans shitty, because I don't get that. I think maybe calling Star Wars fans, like if you interpreted it as all Star Wars fans are shitty,
Right.
then that's bad.
Yes.
But do you think that's a reasonable way to interpret it?
No. I mean, like, I knew exactly who he was talking about. I mean, it's like,
There are shitty Star Wars fans, and it's the people that send death threats and stuff. Like, if you don't like The Last Jedi, that's okay. But if you're constantly telling Ryan Johnson to go kill himself because you didn't like a movie, like, that's a shitty thing to do.
Yeah, I've said this many, many times, but my theory is that you love Star Wars like a child and you dislike Star Wars like an adult. So I kind of think it's like within their right to respond to that sort of stuff. Like, especially like there's this weird sort of thing put across, and the guys from Rebel Force Radio have been tweeting about it, is this the customer's always right type situation. Like you've seen those videos of, you know, people going like crazy in takeaway food shops and stuff, and it's exactly the same. You can't abuse like the creators or the staff. Now, I you know, Rebel Force Radio is a really long-standing podcast, and you know, I've guested on it a couple of times back in the day, and I reached out to those guys to, you know, come on the show to talk about their tweet. So they've said they decided not to, which is, I don't begrudge them for that. We've not had the best relationship over the past year, so do you know what I mean? That's fine. And do you know what I mean? They want to do it on their podcast. I can totally accept that. I don't like begrudge that at all. But the offer was made. Do you know what I mean? So they tweeted out, we spend a lot of time talking about what is broken within Star Wars on our latest show. A big problem is how creators publicly attack the fans. Take Star Wars author Chuck Wendig, for example, shitty Star Wars fans. Great PR, Chuck. So Jimmy from Rebel Force Radio, his contention is that Star Wars creators essentially have to suck it up and take it. And is that the sort of attitude that like Daisy Ridley's meant to have, who's been driven off Instagram because of all the comments? Like, and just recently, Kelly Marie Tran gone from Instagram. Like, is that like, are you meant to like suck that up as well? Or were they driven offline by shitty Star Wars fans? Not that all Star Wars fans are shitty, but the thing with Star Wars, and I talk about this all the time, is it attracts everyone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like all races, all creeds, all financial backgrounds. They generally, if you live in a Western culture, you're going to find people that are into Star Wars, right? They're not all great people. Like, I hate to break it to everyone, but if you go into the solitary confinement in a prison, someone in there is going to like Star Wars. Do you know what I mean? Don't get put off by my cap.
I was hoping he'd come up.
So, yeah, I just don't think it's that wrong to say some Star Wars fans are shitty, because some people are shitty.
Yeah, it's just some people are shitty, right?
Yeah.
It's not just fans, Star Wars fans. It's just, there are just people out there that want to be angry and put that out there.
Yeah. Like, it's the ones I always go back to are the death threats ones. Like, I just don't get it. Like, that's so extreme and hateful. Like, that's shitty.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is a minority of people that do that, but they do it loudly and often.
And the interesting thing is, I was a little bit blasé about the whole problem, especially for women in Star Wars, because you don't see it. It's not in your timeline. Do you know what I mean? You don't see what they're getting. Whenever I post a video on YouTube that features a woman, whether it's a fan or Kathleen Kennedy, the language gets dire. And I have a filter on my thing, so, you know, they all get caught. And I think I may have hit you up for filter.
How to do that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of words, and the list of words that do get banned, they are, when you look at them all at once, it's an eclectic mix.
Yeah.
But yeah, whenever I just posted this thing up this week we did the solo reaction, the live show, which you can also check out on YouTube. And if someone disagrees with a guy, it's like, oh, it's I disagree with them, but whatever. If they disagree with a girl on the panel, it is on.
Mm-hmm.
Like B, C, all your top words, right?
Yeah.
They're all getting thrown out there. And here's the math. They're Star Wars fans, I presume, because they're watching a Star Wars video. Their actions are shitty. So shitty plus Star Wars fan equals shitty Star Wars fans. And, Jimmy's on here on Twitter having a bit of debate with people. And nope, we are paying customers. Customers are all caps. They are in the business to sell. Sell is in all caps. Their product to us. By mistreating the fans, they bring it on themselves, not the other way around. He's putting him like Chuck under the microscope for his reaction. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Let's look at the action. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and that is
the people that are bringing on the reaction. No one's looking at them and asking them what's going on.
It's crazy. It's like we're putting the microscope under the people that are like standing up for this. Like I'm trying to keep the language clean on this, but it's this BS mentality of people that everything has to pander to their ego. And if it doesn't, if it's not how you like, then you get to just do whatever you can on the internet to sort of, feel like you've had a voice.
Yeah.
And we should be celebrating people like Chuck that are standing up and trying to clean out the fandom, but it's the ones that are calling it out that are coming under fire. I just don't get it at all.
It's all very childish to me. I mean, I don't know. I worked in retail, so I get the whole, like, the customer's always right kind of thing a little. Like, that hits me.
Because people always said that to you.
At home. Yeah.
He's going to take some calls.
All right.
And we can have a rest. Let's go to 503. Who are you and where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Bobby. I'm calling from Portland.
Hello. And if you're a regular Star Wars Twitter viewer, or you listen to Full of Sith, you may have heard our first caller on the Hyperchat, Bobby Roberts. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Hello, Alex, and hello, Molly. It's nice to hear you guys on Steele's show. I always love this mixing of the minds, the sort of the mashup of wonderfulness that happens very frequently within the Star Wars fandom. I like hearing the various tweaks and twists of separate personalities coming together and getting chocolate and peanut butter mixed up in a tasty combination. So this has been a cool show.
Oh, nice to actually like talk to you, like voice to voice at least.
Yeah.
No
doubt. I know.
I'm not sure where that chocolate and peanut butter bit was going, so I was very tense. But I'm just glad that technology allows us to hear you, Bobby.
Yes.
What's going on, man? What's on your mind?
I think what you guys are driving at as a baffling element here is essentially a complete and total lack of empathy or an inability to place it correctly. When Jimmy makes arguments along the lines of the customer is always right, and when Jimmy frames Chuck Wendig's reactions to abuse, which is what it is, any sort of abuse, like there doesn't even really need to be a level at which you cut off abuse from basic trolling. Basic trolling is in and of itself abuse. So when you make the argument, as Jimmy has been making, that you have to eat some of that, that you are bound by some sort of strange social contract to eat some of that. What Jimmy is arguing for is placing the fan above the person who creates the thing. And that's basically what we're talking about here. We're talking about making sure that abuse is tolerated. Maybe not championed, but at least tolerated. And making sure that if a celebrity of any type steps out of line, that the first thought isn't how awful that people are going after that celebrity. That the first thought is, how much were they asking for that? And how badly have they failed in not eating everything on their plate? And that's harmful. That's damaging. That's unfair. And it's stupid. And to make the arguments that Jimmy has been making, you know, despite the fact that, you know, knowing him personally, having been around him, you know, well, not in person, thankfully, but having been around him.
Let's play the ball, not the man.
Okay, no, well, the problem is the ball. He has eaten the ball.
I think like apart from like, let's not sort of focus too much on you know, on Jimmy per se, but the actual, like, the topic and the breaking point. Like, is it like, I think it's easy for people to go, oh yeah, I didn't like the Chuck Wendig book, you know, give him hell. But then it's, where does that bleed over? Like, then is it okay to do it to Andy if you don't like the Star Wars show? Is it
Right.
fine
No,
to do it Kelly
it's
Marie
not-
Tran if you didn't like The Last Jedi? Like, where is, and you brought up a good point about where is it acceptable? Like, how much abuse is acceptable? And let's go with none.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we are so used to other Star Wars fans not being adults. We're so used to it. Like that, how, and I don't mean like waving around a lightsaber or dressing up. I mean like these tantrums. It's like it's been so elasticized. Do you know what I mean? If we just jumped 3 years into the future from 3 years ago, what is happening? What is happening?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is sourced from this sort of basic misconception of what we're all doing online. And that sources straight back to some of the first things that a lot of us were taught when we got online. And I'm talking primarily about older generations. Younger generations have grown up in an era where there's always been an online. And so the idea that there's some sort of fierce, strong division between real life and online doesn't exist for them, because for them, there's never been an aspect of their real life that doesn't include using a communication tool that hundreds of millions of people have had access to since they were born. But for older folks like Jimmy and myself, for us, online was sold as a sort of magical wonderland where people could adopt personas and be fake, and it didn't really count. And so there are a whole lot of people for whom indulging their worst instincts is perfectly okay because the internet doesn't count. It's not real. And they don't think of the people on the other side of the screen that they're yelling at as being real. And if someone on the other side of that screen reminds you that they're an honest to God person, whether or not they write books, whether or not they act in movies, whether or not they make really good YouTube content, when they remind you that they are real, a troll's initial reaction is to either be happy that they've actually hurt a real live living human being, because that's primarily what they want to do, is hurt somebody. They don't want attention. They want to know that they hurt you. Okay? They either do that or they go in even harder. And they justify that to themselves by either claiming you're too weak to play in this game because it's a game to them, or they just think that you're not really real, and so it doesn't matter. And that's part of the thing that's getting Jimmy in trouble, and everyone who's sticking up for this sort of mindset that celebrities enter into some sort of social contract where all abuse hurled their way, like a percentage of it, is owed, is due, that they have to eat that. And that's not true. There is no situation in which someone makes something for public consumption and then you are allowed to personally attack them because you didn't like it. There's never been in the history of time a situation in which you can just straight up go at somebody on a personal level, someone you don't know, because they made something you don't like. That's trash. It's garbage. That's a bad response. And you are a bad person for indulging it. And I'm saying that as someone who has indulged it, who grew up in those dumb old Wild West days and acted that way. And it's shameful. And it's learning opportunity. And there are a whole lot of people who refuse to learn from it because they don't want to have to acknowledge the fact that they are hurtful and that they've been hurting people and that it is real. It's not fake. It's not some weird internet wonderland. These are real people who are being forced offline because you want to argue for a place that values you and your ability to be as mean as you possibly can with no repercussion. There's got to be an element of responsibility to this.
And just, some composure about what we're talking about. It's just like, I put up this poll the other day and it was very interesting. It was like, what is your favorite Disney Star Wars film? And it got like almost like 10,000 votes. It got shared around, like way out of my bubble. It got shared around. So it ended up, I think it was about 45% The Last Jedi, which was very surprising.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe at 30, it was Rogue One was second. And I kind of took a lot of the Rogue One votes as I really didn't like The Last Jedi. Like that's how you can sort of interpret it. Like, do you know what I mean? I feel like out of the four, maybe Rogue One, for the person that doesn't like Disney Star Wars, that might be like their best case scenario film.
Yeah.
But people got really angry about just the poll. And it's like, why don't you post up one that's what's your least favorite? And I'm like, why would I want to know people's least favorite something?
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't it just be the opposite? Like you can see what their least favorite is in that poll.
Oh no, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because your favorite film, it doesn't work.
You're right.
Like there is like the statistic doesn't balance out.
I know Star Wars, not math. I'm going to lecture right now.
Okay. Well, I'm Mathematics Explained. Enjoy my YouTube channel. But and I also said I don't think anyone needs any encouragement to tell me which one's their least favorite because the feed was constantly hijacked. There was amazing. There was like 500 actual people going, I like Rogue One because of this, and I like The Force Awakens because the memories, and for me it was The Force Awakens because there's so much like positive memories in the lead up and all that stuff. But and one guy said, if you polled like Nazis about Hitler, they'd probably be pretty positive. But he did it in this real sort of vile way, and it's like, dude, we're just talking about space film.
Yeah.
We are talking about your favorite Disney-produced space film, and you want to talk about the Third Reich. Like, it's just, I don't know. I don't care how dark the room is and how many Scarface posters you have up in it. Chill out. Park. Go see a child laugh. Like, it's just no buys. Anything to leave us, Robert?
Just try and keep in mind and keep aware of a healthy sense of perspective. What you just mentioned is probably the best sunlight disinfectant to all this darkness. Like, have a sense of perspective about what it is you're doing. And that more than often is going to be enough to sort of stop you from spiraling out into a hole that you can't stop yourself from digging. Like, if you would just take a breath, step away, and realize that what it is you're discussing is something, ultimately, it can be insightful, it can be rewarding, it can be enriching, but still, ultimately, it's entertainment. Yes, it's art. And art, if you are consuming art solely as a means to figure out how to convert it into egotism to make yourself feel better about the time you've spent arguing with other people on the internet, you're lost. You got to find a different way to enrich your life. You got to find a different way to make yourself feel like a whole person, because you're never going to feel like a whole person if the foundation you're building that on is hate, is anger, is bile, is vileness. You're just going to be hollow and you're not going to like yourself. And eventually that's going to lead to something bad. Whether that means, you end up in some sort of weird abuse situation, whether you end up, just bitter and alone, indulging those emotions this consistently over something this lightweight is going to lead you down a path where you end up one night waking up, looking at yourself and wondering why the hell you wasted so much time. Don't do that. Spend the time wisely. Enjoy the things that you spend time on. Don't spend time on things solely to figure out new and creative ways to feel big about your small self.
And, all the anger, anger leads to hate leads to suffering. Didn't it, like a goofy puppet, have some wisdom
sounds
about
familiar.
that one time? I don't know. Hey, Bobby, thank you so much for calling in, man. I really appreciate it. And don't be a stranger.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
I will not. Talk to you guys soon.
All righty. There was just a rare glimpse of no technical difficulty. Why did I say it? Why did I say it?
It's just
Rashad
right
is killing me. All right. Let's do another caller. Let's go to Liam 415, who's been on hold for a little bit. I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties, Liam, and we appreciate your call. What's on your mind?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Real good.
How are you?
Good.
Molly, Alex, hope you guys are enjoying your visit to California so far.
So far, yeah.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
All right, thanks for having me on. No worries about the technical difficulties. It happens.
No sweat. Where do you stand on what we're talking about?
So I agree with Bobby for the most part. I think that people lose track of the fact that these are real people that we're talking about in regards to the creators. And I'm glad that we get to see a glimpse of that. I don't want to see these artists be responding in the robotic corporate fashion. It's nice to see that they're real people and that they're allowed to speak their mind.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And you brought up before how Pablo said that he didn't really like Starkiller Base.
Yeah.
And I've heard him say on Twitter before, it's just stuff like he thought like Han Solo maybe like up before the Han Solo bit, he liked The Force Awakens more, sort of thing. He sort of thought Han Solo was.
I do remember that tweet.
Yeah, and whether or not I agree or disagree, I admire that he worked on this film, but he's also like critiquing what he likes as a fan.
Yeah,
sure.
And because that's, do you know what I mean? That's what you want. You want the fan insight. You don't want that corporate, like sometimes when you watch all the press tour and that, you get a bit over it because it's like there's nothing.
What are they going to say?
They're either saying painted on lines
Right.
or doing some goofy game. Like,
Yeah.
let's bake a cake. I don't know. They do all these things. I just want to know stuff about Star Wars. But yeah, I and like Kasdan, like tweeting John Kasdan and Ron Howard, like these, like it's so like cool to have this like one-on-one pretty much contact with them, that if you get them on the right time, you can tweet them a question and get an answer or get a like I've spoken to so many people that have had their day, week made by a simple favorite from Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
It's take it from me, it's pretty good. He's Luke Skywalker. But so what about with Chuck and Pablo sort of, in my opinion, calling a spade a spade? Do you think they've got a right to have a commentary on the fans, or they should just converse and sort of suck it up?
I think they definitely have a right to have their own opinion on the status of the fandom and how they're being treated by fans. And it's pretty obvious to us that they're speaking about a specific group, not everybody. A lot of people are blowing it out of proportion, saying it's all fans. That's not the case.
Yeah, I just point out, if anyone is sort of saying he was saying all Star Wars fans are shitty, you're either lying to me or you're lying to yourself. Like you're being naive on purpose, because it's clearly not what he was like. Like to me, it's like, oh, really? That's quite an imagination that you've put the context of it in saying, I'm done with Star Wars. Star Wars fans are shitty.
Yeah.
Because I talk to him all the time on Twitter, and he loves talking about Star Wars. like it came across like he was shocked that someone, because essentially what's happening is people are going to bat for the racists, for the sexists, for the misogynists, for the arseholes. Whether or not you agree with it or not, like you are siding with the customer is always right.
Mm-hmm.
And just be careful who the other customers are, man, because they're not as nice as you.
Yeah.
Anything to with Liam?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the customer being always right briefly.
Yeah, sure.
I work in customer service, and I just have to say that that's definitely not true. The customer can be very wrong, and I think it's up to us to call them out in a graceful and manageable way. Then, you will get the praise rather than the shun from your superiors for doing that. And again, I just also want to say that if we attempt to censor the creators from speaking their minds or from calling out this type of behavior on the internet, it just feels like we're promoting that type of behavior. Or not promoting, but we're being compliant to the way people act on the internet, where we should be giving that the negative attention and not the people who are being attacked.
Well said, man.
Yeah.
I really agree. Thanks so much for your call, William. And next week, if you call in, you will not be on hold for as long. Fingers crossed. And I'll tell you this, Liam.
No worries, guys.
I'll tell you this home truth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know when the customer is right?
When is that?
When it's me ringing the Mevo Camera Corporation tomorrow and saying, why is this dropping out? That's when the customer is right.
Well, as long as you don't threaten their lives, I think you'll be okay.
Yeah.
I'll be pretty calm. I'm not sure if you know this, but I'm expecting a baby.
I do know that.
It's going to arrive any day now. No, it's not. It's going to arrive in many days, hopefully. But I am a lot calmer. It's weird. I'm just traffic and maybe you guys are going, oh, if that was him calm before the show when he was working out the technician, but I am a lot calmer.
I think a lot of people just think that whatever they say won't get seen, so it's okay. And even if they hope it gets seen, but they're just like, they'll never see this. But whenever I type something out, especially if it's about someone, I try to assume they will see it. And
yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
I've had that happen a couple of times where someone's on a YouTube thread or whatever of I've guessed it on someone else's show, and I like to see what people say, and I also like to talk. Like if someone says, oh, they've got a question, I like answering stuff, and sometimes someone will dish you out, and I'll just write, oh, cheers for watching, and they're like, oh, sorry man, I didn't really see this, and it's like, yeah, well, why? Why are you doing it? Why are you doing it? Hey, thanks so much, Liam. And don't be a stranger, mate.
Right on. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys.
Cheers. We've got people on hold, but if you want to call in and get on the queue, and I must say, if you are overseas, not in America, you can Skype in just at a +1, and that gets the international phone thing coming to you. And Skype's the best way to do it because it's cheap. The number is 646-668-8360. If you're watching the live stream on YouTube, that number should be in your show notes. Let's go to 626. Who are you and where are you calling from?
Hello, this is Tommy out of Los Angeles, California.
Tommy, whereabouts in LA do you live, mate?
San Gabriel. Minutes from downtown LA.
Nice. What's on your mind this evening?
Oh, firstly, I just wanted to say, Steele, enjoy your YouTube show. Follow you on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Enjoy everything. Enjoy your perspective.
Cheers, man.
Star Wars Explained, Alex and Molly. Love your page. Been following you on YouTube for about a year now. Love all your content. It's very informative. Love it.
Thank you.
I find it a little too informative, to be honest, Tommy.
Yeah, we go overboard a lot.
Not for me. I consume it all. I consume it all, everything. Molly, love your shirt. My wife just bought me that exact shirt, and I am wearing it right now.
Awesome.
Same size as Molly?
All right. Well, I hope not. Nothing there's anything wrong with that, but I should be order, you know.
Molly from Target the other
anyway,
day bought me a boy's extra large shirt that fits, and I was pretty bummed about it, but I like the shirt a lot. So
They have.
Well,
I
as
mean,
long as
Target
it
has
fits,
great
that's all that
shirts.
matters, right?
yeah,
Well, do you ever shop in the toy aisle?
yeah.
Okay, well then that's enough.
Like you don't. Come on.
I'm big. What's on your mind, Tommy? I really thanks for your delightful introduction.
Thank you. Well, firstly, I definitely agree with you, Steele, on this whole Chuck Wendig matter and the whole customer is always right. That is definitely not true. I used to work in retail. That is just a retail store policy, just to pander to customers. That's just a way to, create less problems with the customer if they were to be upset about anything. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are correct about whatever it is that they have an issue with. They just have that rule there to create less of an issue. That's it. But if the guys at Rebel Force Radios, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, a lot of time that customer always right thing is like, how inexpensive is this going to be to get rid of this person?
Yeah, I worked retail for 10 years.
That's about it.
And the customer is always right. Now is basically let's try to get this person out of the store and not get a bad review on Yelp. Like whatever we have to do to make them happy.
Solve that issue.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they want to throw out, random store policies and things like that, there's also a policy that a lot of stores have, the right to refuse service.
Yep.
So, when I was working in retail, I definitely exercised that right if the customer has been a douchebag. So, yeah, good work on you, Chuck Wendig. He has a right to express himself if he doesn't agree with the way a person is behaving. It's a human behavior. It's human reaction to react that way just towards someone that's just being hateful for no reason.
It is strange that the customers in this situation seem to feel that Chuck or whoever need to act a certain way towards them, but they don't have to follow those same rules.
Well, it seems like the attitude is like, once you've signed this Lucasfilm contract, you're now a punching bag. Yeah. You're now a slave to my ego and my desires, and I can talk to you in any way. Like, it's at what point, like anything, like, it does my head in. It does my head in. Okay, so I've got the tweet up here. And he should never call out any fan, regardless of how terrible they may act. Regardless of how terrible they may act. Now, you might have like a thing against Chuck Wendig, or you may think he shouldn't have used the word shitty. Do you know what I mean? But regardless of how terrible they may act, like what, how, where? Like it's just such a, like, if you're going to make blanket terms like that, then you're wrong.
It doesn't make any sense.
Like
it really doesn't.
And are you going to tell?
If you think about it from this perspective,
yeah.
As far as George Lucas, I mean, the fans, the hateful fans specifically, played a very large part in him wanting to retire. Like, he planned for 9 films, but he could only do 6 because he was just done. He was done with the fandom at a certain point.
Yeah.
And it's so weird and hypocritical of these people to like, oh, we've got to get George Lucas back. Like, George Lucas is just on record of just like going, yeah, can't please him. Do you know what I mean? And regardless of what,
as it is now.
Yeah, regardless of like what you think of those films, like the whole, if you mention like sexual assault in your breakdown of how you feel about a film, like rape, you are out of perspective.
Way out.
Like
outer space.
And it's also an insult to actual rape victims, because you can't compare that. You really can't.
It's so insulting.
Yeah.
It's just beyond. Regardless of how terrible they may act, I'm sorry. Wrong. No buys. The customer, when he's like being abusive, is wrong.
Yeah.
Leave the premises. No shirt, no shoes, no
Right,
service.
Right
Put
to
on your
refuse
shoes.
service. You're
Put
done.
on your shoes when you tweet Chuck Wendig. You're nice ones.
Should have someone escort people off of Twitter.
If only. If only. Thank you so much for your call, Tommy. And I'll see you around LA, mate.
Oh, for sure. See you around. You guys have a good one.
You too.
Nice. All righty. I think we are going to go now to Emily Lind. Is that you, Emily?
Yes, it is.
It's Emily Lind from the Canobite Dispatch, a fantastic Star Wars podcast that you should check out if you need some extra content. And Emily is reporting live, you guys, from our YouTube live chat feed. So what's going on over there, apart from people laughing at the technical difficulties?
You know what? Everybody's been really good about technical difficulties. Nobody was complaining. People were a little concerned, but we had some good chat in the meantime.
Nice.
Good.
So it ended up working out okay. Yeah. So
What's the vibe there? What's the vibe on this topic? What have we got anyone chiming in?
Oh, definitely. A lot of people bringing up the big difference between giving your opinion and giving abuse, and the fact that some people don't see that distinction.
Yeah, I think that's a
also-
big part of it.
It's
We also had. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, you go.
I was going to say we had a comment from Harry, who actually says, I work in customer service too. As soon as the customer becomes abusive or overly aggressive, I don't hesitate to exercise my right to refuse that service.
Pretty spot on. Pretty spot on. And where do you stand in all of this, Emily? I know you've got a pretty firm opinion on most things.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it you guys talked about, and Bobby and some of the other callers too. It's just, I honestly can't even wrap my head around like talking to somebody that way, especially over a movie or a book that I didn't like. And just the idea that people like Chuck and Pablo should just, I don't know, just put up with it because reasons is pretty disturbing. I mean, it's this very circular argument that was coming up in those tweets that, oh, well, people are mean to Chuck because he's so mean to the fans and so disrespectful to the fans. But Chuck's a Star Wars fan who is, like, I've interacted with him like a lot of times over Twitter through Star Wars, or because I'm a really big fan of a lot of his other books, and he's always been like great and really interactive. And because I followed him before the Aftermath books came out, and seeing that transition and seeing all the negativity that he suddenly had to deal with, I mean, how could you possibly expect somebody not to react to that?
I'm sure that also, I mean, he reacted to this one rabbit hole that he went down, but I mean, he has to be constantly hounded with stuff like that. It's like he probably doesn't respond to most of it.
Oh, for sure.
And like
yeah.
everyone has a breaking point at a certain time. Like there's plenty of stuff that we'll just mute or ignore, and then like sometimes that one thing will get under your skin. Like, I gotta tweet about this. Don't have to, but like I'm going to. So I'm sure that if you look at everything that he gets tweeted, it's like he doesn't probably, I don't know, but he probably doesn't respond to most of it.
Well, no, yeah, he gets abused if he tweets about like making a sandwich. Somebody will tweet about how he's.
Well, there was one that just did my head in, and it was Ryan Johnson like sending condolences to someone that had died.
Oh God, yeah.
I didn't see this, but I mean,
So-
I know where it's going.
Condolences to a friend that had died, or who, you know, like someone on Twitter whose like parent had died or someone had died, and he was like, you know, just letting him know that he was there. People then start telling him about how the film sucked.
Oh, Jesus.
So,
Yeah.
is the customer always right on that one? Is it? Are you going to back that? I don't know. And it's weird. I saw this. All right, this is just the final thing on Rebel Force Radio, because the thing is, like, they've got such a huge voice. Do you know what I mean? Like, that is, like, they've been doing it for so long, and for the majority of people that get into podcasting, because they're the highest ranked podcast, that's where they go to. Do you know what I mean? I want to listen to a Star Wars podcast. Found that one. That's how I found them. Well, not them. That was how I found the Forcecast when it was pre them. And I remembered an episode where they reacted to Revenge of the Sith. So, and that was before Jimmy and Jason. But do you know what I mean? It's so, if that's like the entry point, do you know what I mean? People just listen to that. That's their only one.
Mm-hmm.
That's like all they take. Oh, okay, well, yeah, the creators shouldn't like be hitting back and maybe not going into what's actually getting said. The thing with that, the Ryan Johnson death thing and people chiming in, it was like, do you really have like zero shame?
Yeah.
And I always like want to say to these people, like, show someone, a loved one, what you do on the internet and see how they react. Do you know what I mean? Like I honestly think, and I mean this, like, it's like they should go talk to someone, because if you're venting all this stuff in, none of these people have got their faces. It's always like Darth Anger or, you know, like Spawn or some dark like Avatar sort of thing. No faces. But I would Rebel Force Radio comment with this. Rebel Force Radio Twitter account tweeted, it's called professional detachment. Anyone and everyone who creates, receives abuse in some form or another. Writers, filmmakers, or even podcasters. Look at all the abuse I've received. Do you ever see me resort to name calling? Yes, I do. And then you have to make an apology and edit your podcast. And like, it's What are you doing? Not only once. Emily, I'm going to put you back on hold and scour that chat room, and we'll see what we've got at the end of the show.
Alrighty.
Cheers. All right, let's go to 630. Who are you and where are you calling from?
Well, this is Tyler Westhause from San Mateo, California, buddy.
Hey, Tyler. Come on, buddy.
Nothing. I just heard. I heard down the grapevine that there was some talk about a podcast I don't like that much, so I wanted to listen in. So,
Steele Wars?
I've been having a good time over here. Yeah, I hate this show. I just wanted to listen and hate it.
Well, you know, obviously you've, you know, you've got a history with the Rebel Force Radio podcast, and we're not going to dwell on that. But where do you stand?
I worked for them for about 2 years.
Okay.
That's the history.
Where do you stand on this whole creators versus, and it's not creators versus fans, it's creators versus dickheads. Do you know what I mean? It's like the fan bit doesn't count.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, Tyler.
I totally understand. I'm of the mind that a lot of the people on the internet who talk about Star Wars in a negative way feel entitled to do so because they've been fans for a long time, or they think I like it more than you, which means it's mine more so than yours. But Star Wars is for everybody. And the people who complain and feel entitled to Star Wars as they imagine it are also the type of people who complain about, you know, people who actually need entitlements like social programs or other things like that. Like, they're okay getting their way 100% of the time if it benefits them. I think the attacking Chuck Wendig is just one of the stupidest decisions that, you know, that faction of Star Wars has partaken in a long time. Chuck is Chuck on Twitter, I think that he's totally entitled to speak how he likes on his personal Twitter. He's not an employee of Lucasfilm. That's a misconception that I think a lot of people have. You get contracted to write a book. It doesn't mean that you're full-time staff and you're just talking to Kathleen Kennedy all day, every day, and she's telling you the secrets to the next movie, and she's like, Chuck, go tweet this out for me. I would love to see you attack some idiots on Twitter. Kathleen Kennedy doesn't care.
Yeah.
Like, that's all Chuck. And if Chuck wants to talk about Star Wars the way that he wants to, and he wants to talk about how some of the fans, unfortunately, are, at times kind of terrible, he's totally entitled to do so. I think it says a lot about the people who are complaining about Chuck Wendig, that they're so offended that somebody is speaking their mind. I feel like if Chuck were speaking on the side of what guys like Rebel Force Radio and that ilk believe in, I don't think they would have a problem with it at all. They get frustrated when other people get offended, but when they get offended, it's the biggest issue in the world. It's extremely hypocritical, and I find it amusing because it's just so unbelievable.
Yeah, I just stagger at the blanket, let them do what they want. They're the customer. Like, and when you've got like how many customers, like 10 million customers or whatever, like how do you do that? I don't know.
It's completely insane, honestly. I really don't understand the entitlement that some Star Wars fans have just towards the franchise in general, and feel that they personally get to dictate it just because they enjoy it a lot. That's not how life works. That's not how any aspect of life works at all.
We've never listened to Rebel Force Radio. I can't speak about any of them personally or even professionally.
I have to say, like, if that's your type of radio that you enjoy, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? They talk about the news, they have fun, they muck about, and then occasionally they say something that needs to be called out and right the ship. And do you know what I mean? They've edited stuff out and they've do you know what I mean? So there have been things, but I think when they're just going about their business, enjoying Star Wars the way they want, fine. I've got like zero issue, because not all interpretations of Star Wars are for everyone.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And there's this like weird thing about like competition and stuff. And it's like podcasts are not on, like, they're not on a schedule.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like, you come on my show and, the few people listening or watching that don't know you are going to probably check it out because it sounds really interesting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you might tweet it out and then people like, it's a shared thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if people want to have that, I guess it's sort of like a morning zoo sort of, type of, radio show about Star Wars. And if that's your thing, like, it's fine. Do you know what I mean? And let's just have a world where Kelly Marie Tran can Instagram her happy self every morning, because I thought it was like the thought of her just getting that much abuse. Like, she's just pure joy.
Yeah.
As a person, like, she's just sugar. And for her, just the thought of her just like going, looking at her phone and going, that's it, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sad and disheartening.
Yeah. I mean, like, I wasn't really the biggest fan of Rose in the movie, but like, how can you look at Kelly Marie Tran, like, smiling and laughing on the red carpet, like hugging Rose cosplayers, and think anything bad about her?
I have an answer. You only do that if you're insane. That's what you do.
I don't know. And that's my issue. It's like, why are you standing with these people that drove Daisy Ridley? Like, do they have to harden up? I don't think so. But I just think we need, with the voice that they have and that we've got a bit of, like, there's some responsibility.
Yeah.
And you've got to, like, guide people the right way.
Well, I mean, like, and nobody's perfect. Like, I've said some stuff before publicly that I was like, I had to look at how people reacted to it, and I was like, oh, like, maybe there's another perspective to this. And like, you just try to learn from it and grow, and not stubbornly just stay where you are.
Hey, Tyler, thanks for the call, buddy. And I'll catch you when you are out here for the video game festival, as I call it.
Yeah, I'll see all of you at the video game thing, and
Nice.
thanks for lending me the soapbox. I appreciate it.
I thought Tyler was about to say, I'll see you at StacyCon, just by the San Diego Airport Hilton or whatever that Simpsons reference is. Hey, we have got the call at 707. Who are you and where are you calling from?
Hi, Steele. I'm Robert Young from Sonoma County.
How you doing, Robert?
I am okay.
What's on your mind?
Well, I mean, I just kind of want to, I kind of wish things were just, everyone realizes, we're all just fans of this silly space movie with a giant green squid man named Kit Fisto.
Don't bring
and,
Kit into it.
The main villain is called Sidious. So, this is not that serious. No piece of fiction is that serious that we really need to be calling each other vulgar names or wishing harm against anyone.
Mm.
Like Alex said, I'm not the biggest fan of Rose, but Kelly Marie Tran seems like a really kind person. I don't know why anyone would, be mean to her.
Let's not forget what happened to Jake Lloyd.
Yeah.
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 Do you know what I mean?
A 9-year-old.
Of course, he was 9, so it's a bad age to have it, but like permanently damaged. Do you know what I mean? It's
the way
not
people
cool.
treated a child who was he had no control over the situation.
No. Continue.
Well, about Jake Lloyd. That the way people bullied him in his school. They talked about I'm not sure. I think he got diagnosed with schizophrenia. But I'm sure the online attention didn't help with his mental health issues.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's not always a built-in condition. I think things can happen to you where that triggers it. Not that I'm an expert on that.
There's definitely some PTSD there.
Yeah. Yeah,
on.
that exactly. But where do you stand on like Chuck Wendig and Pablo and that? They're should they just stay off Twitter for that sort of thing, or what's the deal?
Well, I mean, they're their own people, so they can have their own opinions, really. And I'll say I'm a fan of Rebel Force Radio. I've called into their show. I don't know, what they've done. I don't know everything, and I don't, but I kind of all these tweets are just seem misguided. I think the guys at Rebel Force Radio might have been thinking he was referring to just people that disagreed with him and disagreed about his books and didn't like some of the content in his books or The Last Jedi or something. And so they might have assumed that, he was calling any fan that was, did not have positive views about that a bad fan, quote unquote, which I don't think that's what Chuck's intention was. He was mostly talking about people that wished harm on the franchise, if you read the whole thread. So the main problem was probably not doing enough research.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They tweeted out that they've complained to Lucasfilm and are awaiting comment, which actually got turned into a pretty fun meme.
I've seen some of those tweets
with a lot of other Star Wars fans.
Heath's was my favorite, I think.
He's going to complain to Lucasfilm about Zuvio,
yes,
I presume.
Of course.
Yeah, okay. So everyone's just replaced the words with what their gripes are about Star Wars, and they're complaining to Lucasfilm. But I don't know, man. It's just I guess I find it perplexing that people have an issue for something that I applaud the person for. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Is having an opinion and speaking out about it, maybe putting, future jobs at risk. I don't know. I don't know how things work. I'm not sure how important all this is to the larger, Star Wars licensing world. Mm-hmm. But anything else to leave us with?
Well, I don't know. I guess just the same point I made earlier, mm-hmm. that we're all just fans of some silly space movie with lasers and really stupid, silly names such as Thurn Scissor Punch recently. So I mean, I don't. My words aren't going to affect any of the like radical people, but it's just like I feel like I just want to get into their heads. Just chill out, man. No, this is just a piece of fiction. Let's,
Yeah, and I think it's not so much about getting to them because they're done as far as once you're like dropping C-bombs on my comments, do you know what I mean? You're sort of dead to me in a digital form anyway, because I can block them on YouTube. It's fantastic. But it's more the people surrounding it. Do you know what I mean? Like letting other fans know what's the acceptable way to go about their fandom and sort of guiding that as speaking out rather than stopping it, but just like saying like this is clearly the wrong way to go about being a fan. This is a good way. Do you know what I mean? And I have vast disagreements with, like Kyle Newman, who comes on the show all the time. And, we have very different views of The Last Jedi, but we just talk about them. And there's no abuse. Like Kyle, like thinks the world of Rian Johnson as a person. He said it on the podcast the other day that you can watch on YouTube as well, you guys. Sweet plug. But it's like keep your feelings about the creatives like in there and then the people separate. Do you know what I mean? Right. Like if I saw a painting I didn't like and then I saw the painter, like I wouldn't go up to him and go, it's a horrible painting, man.
What were you thinking?
Yeah. It's you have ruined my kindergarten painting. I don't know. But thanks so much for the call and don't be a stranger. We're going to be more organized next time. Maybe.
All right. Thanks, Steele.
Cheers. All right. Before we go, let's go back to Emily Lind on the chat room feed. What do we got, Emily?
Let's see. We have a question for your guest, if that's okay.
Of course it is.
All right. And this is from Claire, and she wants to know, what is something you two disagree on vehemently when it comes to Star Wars? For example, Tyler, he called in earlier, Tyler and I will never agree on Rogue One.
They seem to disagree a lot on boys' t-shirt sizing.
I can't think of something where we were just like, you are wrong about... There's got to be something, though.
Come on, guys.
I'm trying to dig deep for drama.
I'm hard to upset.
I mean, like, we're both very easygoing with our Star Wars. Like, if I see something I don't like, I'll just say, well, oh well. Hope I like the next one more.
Yeah.
You don't have any, like Star Wars, just differences of opinion?
There's gotta be some.
Come on, you guys are pathetic.
This is sad. I'm like, there's got to be something. Come on.
I don't know.
Trying to think about like a Rebels episode or something that we really disagreed on, or.
The only thing I could think of is like, I never. Like many people, I didn't really understand your love for Biggs, but
yes, gone straight for the heart.
I don't disagree with it. I don't have an issue with it, but I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, whatever. Well, what's your favorite character? R2-D2. I know that.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
See, you're immediately a little bit gripey. What's your favorite character?
Oh, I was hoping she'd.
You're a bit
something.
dirty. You're a bit dirty. Have you ever tried to grow a Biggs mustache?
Everyone always asks me that, and this is about it. So no, I can't. I just can't.
Well, I admire the Claire's hoping to get a bit of tension there, but
there had to have been something because when we've been studying for the Schmoedown, and I've been like quizzing him on stuff. So we watched all the films, and I think there was something that I said something about, and you were like, "No."
I know. I know there's something.
When we figure it out, we'll tweet about it later.
Okay.
Like I know Claire, so I can send it directly to her. I'm just.
I just can't wait. Like you're in the middle of like some heated argument in Atlanta, and you just text me. I'm like, I found.
We figured it out.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
She doesn't like basement lightsaber. Can I stay at your house? That's the sort of thing goes on. Hey, Emily, thanks so much for patrolling the chat room. I really appreciate it.
Of course, I'm happy to. It's been fun.
Nice. And you can check out Emily's podcast, The Canto Bite Dispatch, on iTunes or wherever podcasts are found. And we are going to wrap up. On the normal episodes, we're going to do a Patreon bonus section that the Patreons can watch and listen. But I think we should just call it a day and be happy we've got anything streaming. It's the first episode, and I thank everyone for their patience as we expand the content into this bizarre call-in video stream podcasting amalgam. But we'll get it down, and we're going to have we've got a few like production value type things to come in. So we're going to have the screen will, as we go through different news stories, we're going to update. We'll have a bit better set dressing, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
What was your first video like, Alex?
Oh, it's the audio especially is rough, and my voiceover is boring.
All right. Well, ignoring my many YouTube videos, let's count this one as the first and just look to Alex for how things can go, because I think the audio is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your mustache like?
Probably shorter than this.
Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate you coming on. Where can the good people of the internet track down literally, like, seriously, as far as if you want literally Star Wars things explained to you and things about the lore and going into comics, and also your mega, you just put up the new for May the 4th, the entire canon timeline put up, which you couldn't do it any better. The job you do it's so good. So where can people find it?
On our YouTube channel called Star Wars Explained, and our Twitter is at Star Wars Explained.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And your Twitter is?
My Twitter is at Mollie Damon.
And you can watch the Schmoedown and see who won tomorrow, June 5th, on Collider Video.
Yeah.
It's so big of you to promote that, given that at the end of it you had to like do a lap around the stage with your pants down for not getting a single answer right.
I signed a contract with Christian. I was like, no matter what happens, I will plug it.
But I did love those Biggs boxer shorts. They were fantastic. They were great. You can follow us at Steele Wars. We've got podcasts on iTunes where we're found. You can join us to be a patron if you so. But I kind of don't feel like going on about that right now. I will go on. Once we get a perfect episode down, that's all I'm going to talk about, you guys. Don't worry about that. Every second slide will be about you joining up to be a patron. But we do appreciate our patrons for their support. They help pay for all these lights and stuff, which was an amazing thing to use. And I'm still learning. Don't worry about that. On the video feed right now, you can watch the full reaction live show to Solo with Anthony Bresnikan, Jennifer Lander, Morg Garrett, Horst Burkhardt, and Kyle Newman live at the Scum and Villainy Cantina. It was so fun. And if you want more Solo insight, we're going to have details back on the show next week on the normal interview Steele Wars podcast, and he'll be giving us all his stories from the set of Solo.
It's Quay Tulsite, right? The Pike?
Yes, he is the Pike, and he's appeared in The Force Awakens and in all the Disney films as several different characters. So it's cool. He's slowly going up the creature chain. And if you want to find out more about his stuff before his episode, he has 2 other episodes up where he talks about being on the set of The Force Awakens and his Rogue One and Last Jedi experiences. I don't know the character, but he the guy that liked to dob on people that parked in the wrong spot.
Oh yeah, slow and low.
Oh my God. This dude.
He's in a Bednado.
How did you not get any questions right on the
I
weekend?
just brain farted the whole time.
Wow.
It's that live audience.
Oh,
Yeah.
nerves.
True that. Guys, thank you so much. Everyone watching live, I appreciate your patience. Hopefully next week we'll go. Actually, not next week. It's every 2 weeks. We've got to have a Patreon goal to get it up to every week because I've only got so much time, you guys. But we'll see you in 2 weeks. Details next week. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Rashad, for one of the most stressful 2 hours of his life. And may that force be with you.